back to the Franklin Factor podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Sarah Savard, co-owner of the Franklin team. And today we are hitting the road figuratively. And we are going to be diving into the Houston greater area. We're going to do something completely different that we've never done. But before we get into that, Sarah, this is our first episode back, season 3 together.
So exciting. You're back from maternity leave and we get to hang out together and go all over Houston.
Yes.
So I'm excited to kind of share with our listeners a little bit more into the normal areas than that everybody thinks of when they think of Houston.
Yes. So here's what we're going to do. And, almost weekly, we have leads and we have buyers that call in and they say, we want to buy it in Houston. And we're looking in these 3 different neighborhoods. And they say something like Katy, Tomball, and the Woodlands. And that's what they say. And 9 times out of 10, they don't understand the vast differences that those areas are geographically speaking. They're thinking that they're all clustered together. Because Houston is so large and we service so much, I thought it'd be fun if we literally take a little tour around Houston and kind of dive into some surprises about different areas, but kind of hit the 4 different corners of Houston.
And really, I think what our goal is to also share some stuff that people probably, like you said, surprises, haven't thought about.
Yes.
Because doesn't every buyer want to find like a good deal?
Yeah.
How many times do you hear a buyer say,
yes,
find me a good deal? Well, that's kind of what we wanted to center today on as well. Like some areas that maybe aren't as built out, don't have as much, they don't maybe have the Katy or the Woodlands, but they're close enough to where you can still do those, like get the amenities, get that area stuff, but you're kind of on the outskirts a little bit that hasn't really fully developed.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Excited. Let's start.
So hang tight with us. No guest today, just Sarah and I. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into 4 different areas. And I will tell you right now, I promise you, if you hang with us, one of these areas of town will definitely surprise you with the things that we're going to cover today in today's episode. So welcome back. Let's get going. So first off is we're going to talk about the north side of town. So Magnolia and Conroe, which is just blowing up.
Booming. Oh my gosh. The like every time we go out there, there's new roads, there's new activity, new dirt moving.
Yes.
One of the things when I was doing a little bit of research that I wanted to share with our, listeners is, if they don't already know this, Conroe got named like the top suburb of Houston because of the growth. Obviously, there's a lot of businesses that have grown, that have moved to Texas. A lot of the oil companies have moved up north. So there's been a lot of growth there and they've put in a lot of money, right?
Yes.
So there's just so much growth everywhere there.
So let's give the listeners, we're going to put a picture on the screen if you're watching this online of a map of where Conroe and Magnolia sit. They are kind of side by side, as I would call them. Conroe sits directly north of the Woodlands. So if you're thinking of the Houston area, let's call it a circle, directly north, about 30 miles, you're going to find the city of Conroe. And to the west or left, if you're not directionally sound, is Magnolia. And Magnolia kind of bleeds over to a little bit more of the northwest. But Conroe is 30 minutes up north from Houston, and it is just blown up. And so there's a couple of reasons why we wanted to talk about it. Obviously, because of the just booming growth population up there. And the reason why I think Conroe gets overlooked is because the Woodlands has been so established for so many years. Everyone hears things about the Woodlands, the waterway, the Woodlands. You have a ton of medical there. And the Woodlands sits about maybe 10 miles south of the Conroe. So it's a little bit closer in. But Conroe is really just a little bit north of there, and you get so much more in Conroe without the prices of the Woodlands. So it's a great area and great location for those people that are moving from out of state that are thinking, we want the Woodlands, we want the activities, we want to be in the know, but you can't afford the prices of the Woodlands. Conroe is a great booming area.
We've had a lot of people who've come, in the last 5 years or so since COVID, where they've, came here wanting the Woodlands. And I can think of a family that I'd helped off the top of my head that wanted the Woodlands. It was very important because they wanted all of the amenities that they have with all the parks and all the outdoor activities. And then they realized that, do they really want to go that much more higher in price? So they ended up buying in Magnolia, which is what we're talking about today. So you can get a lot more for your bang for your buck.
Yes.
And you're really I mean, the area that they bought in Magnolia, they're like 10 minutes from the Woodlands. Like, it's not like they're really that far.
And we'll show you again on the map. So Magnolia butts up to the west side of the Woodlands, and Conroe sits of the north. So it kind of encompasses the Woodlands. And again, you're going to be paying a lot more price per square foot, price for anything in the Woodlands, but you still have access, and you're likely going to get a little bit more bang for your buck buying and purchasing in Magnolia and Conroe at this time. We've talked a little bit about the vibe of, who is kind of looking maybe for the Woodlands, can potentially Conroe or Magnolia might be a good fit. But let's talk about who is moving to the Conroe and Magnolia area. Like, what would that buyer profile typically be? Like, what would sell the Conroe or Magnolia areas?
So I think a lot of who I'm thinking of that profile is probably somebody like a remote worker who, I mean, it's not the most ideal if you are driving into downtown, right? So that would be a lot. But so we do see a lot of people who are working remote or aren't working downtown. You know, they may be at Exxon, and so they're, they have a somewhat closer drive. That's just how Houston has developed anyway, is if they're working downtown, they want to be closer to downtown, right? Obviously, we still have people that commute, and it makes sense. But you've seen in the last 6 years where that's really decreased a lot, where people are moving here. A lot of people were moving to Texas still because they can work remote. And they like all of the activities you can do all year round in Texas, right? So we do see a lot. They can get more bang for their buck, like we said.
One thing that goes into that real quick is property taxes. So both you and I think live in Harris County, which is typically most of Houston. So once you kind of get north of the Woodlands, that line, that county, Harris County, is known for higher property taxes. So when you move into the Conroe and the Magnolia space, obviously this is subject, disclaimer, subject depending on what address you're looking at. But most of those homes are going to be in Montgomery County, and taxes typically are a lot less in Montgomery County. Why that's important for buyers that are coming here to Texas from out of state: we don't have state income tax here in Texas. So we do see that typically buyers from outside states that are coming here are very shocked at seeing property taxes being a little bit higher than what they're normally looking at, but that's because we don't have state income taxes. So I will say, I agree with you. Remote workers, most likely, who are looking family-oriented, they have a lot of really great schools. Conroe ISD, Magnolia ISD is growing. A lot more land, per se, when you're talking about options versus you get into the Woodlands, you don't have a lot of options because everything's so built out. So if you're wanting more land, more space for kids, family-focused, but also access to amenities, Conroe and Magnolia are going to be great places for you to look and also get lower property taxes as well.
And they're in development, right? So they're not built out, so you can still get some appreciation by buying sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
great point.
If you're wanting to have some equity and stay with it and plan to stay for a while, that definitely is a smart move.
Yeah. So if you are looking at the Woodlands, be open to what's around the Woodlands. So Magnolia and Conroe definitely would be important to check out when you're looking and talking to a realtor. So here's my Franklin take on it: is when people hear Magnolia or Conroe, I think the perception is, oh, it's kind of like the old Katy. Like they have this perception of it is where Katy was 10 years ago. And yes and no, it still has that quaint vibe. Like you said, it's not as developed. It's not as massive as it is now in Katy. Katy is a whole different game.
Right.
It is a huge city in and of itself outside of Houston.
I agree. And it's like we mentioned earlier, getting in earlier than later.
Yes.
So just like Katy was 30-something years ago, because I grew up here, is the infrastructure. So we're still seeing a lot of it being developed. A couple years ago, they extended 249 much further up, which is amazing. The Grand Parkway's up there too, which has helped a lot. And retail's coming. There's retail that's still being developed. All of that is still coming, but getting in early is smart. So I think it's nice to see that stuff's coming, because it is coming, right? Like when you start seeing the schools and in the neighborhoods and the retail comes, they get their first Walmart and H-E-B. It's just a matter of time before all of this stuff just starts filling up there.
Yeah. And if you want somebody that you can trust to be the expert here, feet on the ground, heartbeat of what's going on in these local places like a Magnolia, like a Conroe, this sounds desirable for you, contact us today. We have agents that live there. My husband and I are looking for land in Magnolia. We know where you don't want to be purchased right now if you don't want to be sitting in traffic, because 1488 is under massive construction right now. Or if you are looking for new build, there's a lot of new communities. Colton community is coming up 249, and it's going to be massive. And so there's so many different opportunities. You need a realtor, like somebody that is local, that has knowledge, and that can actually point you in the right direction. So don't do it on your own. Reach out to us today and we'll get you connected to a buyer agent that can help you on our team. Next up is stop number 2. We're going to talk about Fulshear and Brookshire. It's really kind of, I feel...
Brookshire? Is
Brookshire?
it Brookshire?
Oh gosh, Brookshire.
I don't know.
I was literally just about to tell Sarah, this is more your expertise, so...
I'm like, I've always said Brookshire. Hold on, I'm going to look it up to see.
It's not Brookshire like The Hobbit, like I was saying. Brookshire, you're right.
Oh my God. Woo!
This is why I said this was your expertise. Like, I'm from the north.
My expertise.
It is, ladies and gentlemen. She's been born and raised here in the Katy area. So explain to the listeners, if they are out of state or unfamiliar with the Houston greater area, where are we talking about?
So Brookshire is right west of, left, if you're looking at a map, of Katy. So Fulshear is more south of Katy, west, and then Brookshire's right just a tad bit north. So Brookshire's actually in between Katy and Sealy, which Sealy's the next, biggest town. But there's been so much growth there. Katy's been developing for 30 plus years. And so it's essentially, there's a few pockets of new communities left. But really, if you want to get new construction, Fulshear and Brookshire are the way to go, because those are the closest right outside. So very similar talk as before as the Woodlands versus Magnolia and Conroe. It's just the little outskirts of those areas but right up to it. Fulshear, has been developing. I think more people have grown and kind of developed that first before Brookshire. Probably a little bit like Conroe was, and then, Magnolia. But Fulshear is more of off Westpark Toll Road, and obviously you can get more bang for your buck there, just like you can in Brookshire. Lots wise, I think
in comparison to Katy is what you're saying.
In comparison to Katy, probably 20 years ago, I would say that people were a lot more concerned about the school district. So this is not Katy ISD. These are going. There is some parts that are Katy ISD that are Fulshear addresses. Same with Brookshire, but for the vast majority, they are Lamar Consolidated and or Fort Bend. That was an area that was developing, right?
Yep.
I mean, just like Conroe ISD, like that same thing. As the development started, they started pouring money into the schools, developing more schools.
Yeah, it's not in its build phase anymore. It is well established. And something that I will say that I'm knowledgeable about of Fulshear specifically is the quality. Mm-hmm. For what you pay for there, you get the amenities in Fulshear. But to me, when I think of Fulshear, I think of master plan communities. I think of amenities. I think of the pickleball culture that's so explosive right now. And I think about the people that I know that live there and all the activities they're in. And so that's something that I think Fulshear has a lot to offer with amenities.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's built up. I mean, they have larger lots just as much. Their prices are going up. They're more developed over the years. They were kind of more of the start before Brookshire. Now, Brookshire, on the other hand, is, right there on I-10, just a little bit more west. Tad bit further, like the next exit.
Yep.
You can get just as much for it. It's new. So you're really, I would say, newer. You're getting in and you're getting a pretty good deal. You could get a nice deal out there.
We were just saying it's actually 3 minutes, a little bit more west, but the prices you can get, because it's a little bit further, so if you're willing to go a couple more exits, you can actually get better pricing out there.
And honestly, if you're going a couple more exits, a lot of times in Katy, you may be in one of these subdivisions that are so huge that take you 20 minutes just to get into your house. Yeah. And then you could have just gone a couple exits further, and it's much more convenient, closer to the freeway, and they're not these communities where you're taking forever to get into your house once you're in the community.
Yes. I will say what's nice about the locations of Fulshear and Brookshire is the access to I-10 to get you into town. So again, people buying or listening to this podcast or agents listening to this podcast, don't count those two areas, sub Houston areas out, because a lot of buyers say Houston, but they don't actually know what Houston means or doesn't mean. So somebody that does maybe has to commute into Houston can still live in Fulshear and get the amenities that they want for their family and have the master plan community and get the quality of the build the newer home. Whereas people might just know, well, I just need to be in Houston for work. Actually, the commute on I-10, I would say, is probably better than going up north where we were just talking about in Conroe. I don't know, traffic's bad all over, but
well, yes, I think the freeways are better on the west side of town than they are on the north side, mainly because 45 is just a nightmare in my opinion.
Nightmare.
So, I mean, if you do 249 and then do 290 in, I mean, maybe that's a little bit better.
No.
But I feel like with Fulshear and Brookshire, you can there's easy access to go I-10 or go Westpark to get into town, which is great.
So we're going to cover who's moving here. And what I love about this is it's really that overflow buyer of Katy. Everybody is so focused on Katy because Katy has been for many years, for many decades, known as top-rated schools, great location, just outside of Houston, major access to now 99 Grand Parkway that goes north and south, and then I-10 east to west. So to me, this is more of the overflow of like when you can't get into the high demand or the landlockedness of Katy, people are now looking to Fulshear and to Brookshire.
Absolutely. And I think the schools are great. One of the downsides I would say of Katy that we've heard from buyers is that there'll be a new community. They buy in a brand new community, but like a newer community, and they don't right away that new school that they open because of the new rooftops, they have to go into the temporary buildings right away. So it's like the growth hasn't caught up, and it's like, okay, why are these schools just maxed out? Brand new schools. It's almost like they didn't get it all right when they were planning it years before, when they got all the money and all the approvals and everything like that. So I've heard of people who moved back out of Katy because they didn't like that the classrooms were so maximized. And so they liked going to Lamar or going into another suburb or into town or somewhere different because they did not want that overcrowdedness for their children. Yeah. Even though Katy ISD still does have really good exemplary ratings and everything.
Also, I think about people who work in the energy corridor, and we'll show on the map. So that is Houston. It's not the inner loop Houston where like Galleria traffic, crazy traffic. Typically, we are finding that it's a great location, Fulshear and Brookshire, for people that can commute to energy corridor but have families. And so maybe the life inside the loop of the energy corridor is not necessarily what they want. They want the amenities. They want the master plan community. So they're moving out because that commute is very easy for them. So a lot of oil and gas people with families are looking at homes and going, wow, I can get some acreage. I can get a new home that's, it's kind of still building. So it's a great option.
Yes. And the one thing about Brookshire, though, is I would say it's very much being developed. There's not as much infrastructure yet. So it's behind the times there. It's moving. It's happening. And you kind of have to be expecting that you are going to have to travel to go to the H-E-B and, the store. Yes. We have clients that didn't really realize that. And that's just what happens. It's going to get there. So I think the plan would be when you buy there, you need to plan to hold on to it for much longer. So you can wait for that infrastructure to come, the appreciation to set in and whatnot. So
I live 3/4 of a mile from H-E-B. So we always joke in my house, if we ever move, it's going to be a nightmare for me because I'm constantly going to the grocery store, and I just recognize that's not always the case. So I think that's a great point of there's not as much retail and infrastructure that's quite developed out there
I don't
yet.
think people think about that. I think they think, it's this beautiful communities out there. I mean, there's some really, really great communities with these large acres, but it's just the small roads, and you've got a lot of, it takes you 30 minutes to get to the store. I mean, it's almost like you're still living in the country.
Fulshear has a lot more retail than Brookshire. Brookshire is, again, the further west city. So that is what we're talking about.
Yeah. And honestly, thinking about Brookshire Brothers, I don't even know, do they even have a Brookshire Brothers? That's a good question. We should look into that.
Chat.
Okay, so my honest take is, Fulshear blew up. It's not really a hidden gem as it was a couple years ago.
Yes.
I think maybe 5-10 years ago, it was more of a hidden gem. Brookshire is kind of that hidden gem where you can get quite a bit of a deal right now. You just have to be expected to hold on to it for some time.
That is key. I think that is such a great point for listeners and for agents learning as we go through these different stops and take a tour. It's, what do your buyers plan to do with this, right? Is this where they can see themselves in the next 10 to 15 years? If so, that's likely a great investment. If this is just a stop on the way to where they're going next, it may not be the right investment.
And I think that's important, Danielle, like to mention that. Like when you're an agent and what we train our agents to do. So again, us kind of sliding in there, if you are looking and need an agent, we train our agents to ask those questions. Why are you buying? Are you an investor? Because Brookshire is a good buy for an investor. If you're planning on buying this home and sitting on it and you're fine, like the idea of being kind of further out, and we're even seeing people go even further to Sealy because they like that. They want to be further away. Then this may be the buy for you.
Yeah. And the whole point of this podcast is to help agents recognize, don't take just surface level what a buyer says they want. Obviously listen to them. But when they say, I want the Woodlands, how valuable are you now when you give them not only the Woodlands, but you provide other options and solutions that are going to give them more value and better deals. And you become more knowledgeable about what is the Woodlands? Why is that important? What if we can get it cheaper and it's only 5 minutes away? What's important about Katy? Because again, we have buyers that are naming these big time cities in the greater Houston area, like the Katy, like the the Woodlands, or like the Pearland, or like the League City, but they don't know what else is in the back door of Katy, in the back door of the Woodlands. And so they're so focused on that, but there's also great opportunity elsewhere.
And it's a really good point because we see this all the time, right? They're hiring us because we're the specialist and we need to provide other options, because a lot of times they're just so stuck
Woodlands.
on, I want this. And what they want, they likely, not always, I would say some of the time, they can't really afford that, right? Yeah. Because they've just heard this name and they think that this is what you need. And you can still get a lot of the same thing and get more for your money.
Yep. Okay, so next stop, our third stop, and I just want to say this up front. We're going to be heading south. I think immediately when people think of suburbs of Houston and they think south, they hear Pearland. And not to knock Pearland. Pearland's great, but I think the conversation, we need to go a step further and discuss what's happening a little bit south of Pearland.
Right. I think it's one that people will be quite surprised about is Manvel and Iowa Colony, yes. Right? And if you've never heard of Iowa County or, like Missouri City, right? Kind of near there. Those are areas that are just, again, like a hidden gem we mentioned earlier. Yeah. These are ones that you just don't really hear. If somebody wants Pearland, good luck.
I've never had a buyer call in and go, I want to move to Iowa Colony. No, they don't. And so that's exactly the point.
Right.
That's the point of this podcast. That's the point of why we're looking just a little bit outside of the known cliche types of areas that buyers are looking at, because again, Manvel and Iowa Colony have a lot to offer.
The cool thing about Pearland is it's the closest to the med center.
Right.
It used to be 20 minutes before everybody figured it out. Now it's a little bit further because of traffic, but they also have great freeways now. They've got an awesome HOV that makes it much quicker to get down there. But again, it's built out just like we said about Katy and the Woodlands.
Yes.
And you can't really get new homes anymore in Pearland, so you've got to go a tad bit further. And with that means a lot more infrastructure being built out and a lot of cool master plan communities with lots of cool amenities. And the schools are being developed. A lot more being thrown into that, which is awesome.
Yep.
And continues to... That's what's so amazing, I feel like, with Houston, is it's so big. I don't have the numbers, but I think I heard the other day at a thing, it was like 100-something miles from east to west and north to south. I mean, it's just wild, right?
I believe it.
Yes, those Pearland is essentially, and what we hear a lot are Pearland area. And to me, that means, okay, we can look in Pearland, but we're also going to look in Manvel and Iowa Colony and sometimes even further out some, you know, if they want to be much further out.
And we talk about, who would this area, like, who would this charm, this conversation? What buyer's looking here? You mentioned the med center. That's so important. If you're not knowledgeable about the Houston area, we have one of the greatest med centers like in the world, especially MD Anderson for cancer patients. We have people that literally will fly in or come move here because of the treatment opportunities that we have here in Houston. So it's a major, major source of a lot of buyers that come here from out of state. And so like you said, it's a very short trip past Pearland to get to a Manvel or to an Iowa Colony. It's less infrastructure. It's less landlocked. So you have more opportunity, more options. And I will say I've gone on many listing appointments down there for you and Andrew, and the tolls are silent. The highways are quiet. It's not packed because most of the Houston commuters that do come down to my sister-in-law, we live up north. She works at Texas Children's down there. So guess what? She is an hour commute one way and back up north. A lot of the majority of people that are commuting into town are fighting that traffic north and going back out north. So this provides opportunity for a shorter commute for those medical workers that are moving here or that are seeking to have more of family kind of structure, family communities type, maybe a little bit more space and not be in the congestion of the downtown kind of Pearland option.
And you're going to see a lot more doctors, nurses, the techs.
Yes.
All of that, the tech side of the medical industry, that's where they live because it is so convenient and it really isn't that bad. I mean, if you compare it to all the other places that have much more traffic. And you can, again, Manvel and Iowa Colony, you get a lot more bang for your buck if you're going just a tad bit out. And we're talking like an exit or two. It's not much. Pearland tends to be really crowded. Once you get past Pearland on the freeway, it's actually much easier to get anywhere because everyone's exiting that same exit that everybody that was 518 or whatever.
I will say something about Manvel to consider. There's a lot of opportunity for unrestricted land. There's a lot more acreage type of opportunity with properties. So people with horses, people that do desire maybe a 5-acre lot, but just a normal residential home. We have a listing right now that a builder himself who does custom home building, he chose Manvel for that exact reason. He builds in town, so the commute worked out, but for him and his family, he wanted acreage. So he chose Manvel and he built his own house in Manvel, and that's great. So it's a great opportunity. Again, I just think it's underrated. I think it's not on the radar. It's not something that's talked about enough, but we know a ton of communities out there and builders that are, they're seeing the land and they're taking it and they know the value.
Pearland got built up, 20 years ago. And so that's when a lot of, 10, 20 years ago, when you're seeing a lot of those homes, maybe probably 20, 30 years ago, I feel like a lot of those are like early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so nothing wrong with that. I mean, those are great. It's just what do you want, right? If you want new construction, it's dated. Do you want to have to remodel? Do you want to replace,
such a good point,
a roof and AC and stuff like that? Or would you rather have new than, you got to trade something, right? So newer, you're going to have a lot more options if you just go a little further out.
It's great. All right, so now we are going to transition, and I did this on purpose to have this be our last stop of the grand tour of Houston, because this is where I think the listeners are going to say, wait, really? You can do that in these areas? And so we're going to dive into Kemah and to Dickinson. And so a lot of people probably hear Galveston, and we want to take them to Kemah and Dickinson.
Or League City, Clear Lake.
A lot of people hear, Clear Lake or League City are kind of the big known, I would say, coast. Again, we'll show you guys on the map where we're talking about, but there's a lot to offer in Dickinson and Kemah. So let's dive in.
Yeah, it's the Bay. So if you want that water lifestyle, I mean, it's you got it. Yeah. There's a lot more homes that either have boat storage, which is really cool, new communities that, again, Clear Lake and League City are built out. So if you want new construction, you get a lot more, and you can have that lifestyle of being on the water, but you're not an hour down south to Galveston, right? So many clients that love that. They are big into spending the weekends at the Bay and fishing or whatever. I mean, you've got the Kemah Boardwalk, which is amazing. It has so many different activities for families, restaurants, and you're right there.
Yeah.
And not too far from downtown.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I like to think is This is more for the people that aren't doing the touristy thing. These are for areas that have the lifestyle of they enjoy boating, they enjoy fishing, they enjoy, like you said, being on the water and taking those types of kind of weekend getaways. And so for us, I think it's more of a lifestyle kind of option versus like the overflow effect, right? Because Galveston isn't necessarily so overpopulated like we've talked about with Katy in the Woodlands, because there's a lot of inventory in Galveston. But what you're going to find in Dickinson and Kemah is it's more for the lifestyle and for family and amenities versus Galveston is more touristy focused or investor focused, right? You have a personal experience of having and owning a home where it's a lot of very focused on Airbnb and tourist people coming to stay and visit and then go home. And so you're not going to be able to find the kind of community if you had a family. And if I lived in a neighborhood where all these people were Airbnb neighbors, that's not going to work.
Well, and what's really cool about it too is you like that lifestyle, but you want to live there. You want to be closer into town. Yep. And so instead of having like a weekend home, like what we did, you want to live there full time, and you can get good schools. There's a lot more like retail and stuff, and you're closer to town.
Yep.
So much closer than you would be in Galveston.
Right on the water where
that's true.
Insurance is crazy. Like if you're buying on the water in Galveston, you personally know how expensive that insurance is going to be. Now, you're still likely going to have some sort of like property insurance, probably wind. I don't know.
And flood for sure if you are on the water. And the insurance is definitely going to be more expensive. Like you can't
get around that.
You can't get around that. Obviously, you'd have to factor that in. That's part of what you would be doing, and having the right realtor who can guide you on that.
But prices are cheaper there as well versus Galveston.
So the numbers still may be, still probably going to be better, but because Galveston, you're so much more further inland than you would be, in Galveston. Yeah. So even just the insurance costs are going to be less, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that even if maybe you're not on the water, you want something less expensive, but you like to go to Galveston, you can get something that's not on the water and still be closer down there, closer down, or you want to go for an evening or something. I mean, it's definitely a great location if that's kind of what you're looking for, because you are so into boating or fishing, or we hear that all the time, or clients, that's very, very important.
We have good friends that the husband wants to go live down there because he likes hunting, dove hunting during season. And so Sargent, which is a further city that's very south, there's a lot of hunting grounds or opportunities. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Forgive me because I'm not a hunter. But you're exactly right. So it's more about the lifestyle focus. I would also say energy vibes. Like Kemah is a whole different energy than a suburb of like Katy, right? It's more activity focused. The retail there, the restaurants there, it's something you are a part of, that kind of like, we want to go out, we want to be entertained. That's a really fun place to be. I haven't been in a few years. I don't know if you take the kids or...
we haven't been in a while, but we did have friends that had a place down there. And it was a big thing to take your boat and go restaurant or bar hopping or whatever. That was,
we do not condone drinking and boating.
No, exactly. And that is for Tita. So, there is the boardwalk down there for Kemah, and then he's got one in Galveston. But very, family friendly, whether it's restaurants, activities. It is definitely a different lifestyle. None of the other suburbs have that kind of, bay feel, being on the water.
Yeah.
Which when we had our place in Galveston, we went there to buy our boat. We were in Kemah. And there's just something different about being near the water that is such a cool, relaxing feel. So I get it. I understand why people would want to be down there.
Sure.
It's nice. So another great buyer profile for down there in that Dickinson, Kemah area is retirees.
Oh.
So I think a lot of people got, instead of maybe they have family in town or family in the Houston area, they don't really want to go all the way to Galveston. Maybe one of them is still working. They want to be in that area. And actually, the buyers or the sellers who sold us our home that we used to own down in Galveston, that was their place. But then they decided to move to a condo in Kemah, just to not have as much space anymore.
I can see that.
We're seeing a lot of that as well.
And, I think about, again, the remote worker, right? So somebody, maybe it's a young gentleman, maybe it's single, or maybe it's not single. Maybe you do or don't have a family, but a definitely remote worker where you're not traveling, but you also want that lifestyle to play when you want to play, but also come and have that kind of vacation close to the bay, like like you said, the vibe and the energy of being close to the water. Houston is close to the water. We're as close as you're going to get outside of New Orleans, probably, or Tampa Bay, something like that. But truly, I really think that there is an option or opportunity if buyers are talking to agents. If you're listening and you hear from a buyer that's wanting to purchase in Galveston, if they remote work, pitch Kemah, pitch Dickinson, because you get to play around in the background and you don't have to worry about commute and traffic or anything like that. So that's another ideal buyer.
I do. This is kind of off topic, but I did want to share it. So did you know that Galveston would have been the Houston had the hurricane of 1900? I think this is true. I probably should fact check it. My parents had a place in Galveston, and my dad is a history nerd. And so pretty sure it was the hurricane of 1900. And they ended up having to build the seawall and everything. And so it just made sense for the port and everything to be closer to Houston. So really, Galveston was supposed to be this really big and like
major city,
but instead, they moved it inland to Houston. So kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to fact check.
Yeah, maybe we should check that. Yeah. So the Franklin take is that this is a great buy, retirees, families, even if you're an investor, a rental market. We're seeing that's a strong market down there. And one of the things that we didn't mention was the Johnson Space Center.
Yes.
That's a huge pull for tourism, but also a lot of workers. A lot of NASA is down there, and we've seen, obviously right now it's been going on. Artemis is out and, at the moon and circling around all of that. So that's really cool. I don't know. Have you taken your kids down there?
No. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we haven't. It's been a while, but I think they're at the age where I think they would think it's really cool. So,
that's awesome.
But yeah, I think it's still a really, really good buy. And, it probably in a few years, it's going to be built out. And
yep, that's what I was going to say. My Franklin take is on these two areas is essentially right now, this is the time to buy. And I think in 5 years from now, it's going to be a well-known kind of Fulshear of the Katy, right? It's going to be a Kemah or it's going to be a Dickinson of the Galveston.
Yeah. So more well-known and more popular.
Yes.
And definitely more built out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So our grand tour of looking at all four corners of Houston has come to an end. We hope that you have taken away something because ultimately, we need to be thinking outside the box for our buyers as agents, right? Because everybody is talking about the Katys and the Woodlands and the Galvestons and the Pearlands. And what we need to be able to do is provide value for our buyers and take them where all the competition isn't and show them the exact same opportunity. And so if you enjoyed today's podcast or learned something new, like, subscribe, and follow along for the future rest of our episodes or the future of our podcast season.
And, obviously, if this is interesting to you as an agent and want to learn more about joining our team and how we train our agents, how we provide these services to our clients and help train you to do that, reach out to us about our informational. We'll have it tagged too in the podcast episode. But please reach out. We have an informational that goes into everything about joining our team, joining us at EXP. And we look forward to seeing you.
Yes.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to mention in the show notes, you guys, since you have made it through the whole podcast listening, we have given you a free resource of just a very simple collateral piece. If you'd like to learn more about how we created that or see more of our collateral, but it's about the Houston greater areas. And what we've done is we've basically broken down Houston for buyers that are shopping that are not known to the Houston area. And so our agents use that resource, and we'd love to share a little bit of that with you. It's a lot longer than what we've attached. So if this is something that you've liked, please reach out. Also, I wanted to mention that later on this season, we're going to have an awesome episode where Sarah and I are going to answer some questions, so Q&A. So what we're asking you to do is click the link below or in the show notes and enter any kind of question that you have about real estate, about our systems, processes. Maybe it's a struggle you're having as a realtor. Give us your situation, and we're going to have a podcast where we just sit and we answer your questions, meet you where you're at, and we want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you want to know from both of us and the Franklin team. So
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Yeah.